Welcome back to State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts, and today we have a little bonus episode about the New Orleans Pelicans and their wing situation because they have a lot of talented guys at that position, but there's not room for all of them, especially with Brandon Ingram. He's going to have to get paid soon, and are the Pelicans going to be able to do that? We'll see. I think he could very well be a trade candidate this upcoming NBA season, especially given that the Pelicans aren't really in a place where they can really contend at this point in time. So I think it could very well be time to focus in on guys like Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. And there's a lot of talent on that Pelicans roster, inside and out, even off the bench. Guys like Jose Alvarado, guys like Trey Murphy, but Brandon Ingram is going to be on the final year of his contract. And at the same point in time, you have four pretty young wings all kind of vying for a starting spot because you can't start all four of them. You can make a case for three. Put Herb Jones at the two, Trey Murphy at small forward, and Zion at power forward. But then, that leaves Brandon Ingram out because that would be the young core with more potential because at this point, Brandon Ingram, he's not getting any better. He might be hitting his prime now in terms of age and his physical capabilities, but what we're seeing from Brandon Ingram is a finished product, and that finished product isn't always the best player performer. So you might want to bet on guys like Trey Murphy and what they can do and their upside because you're gonna be paying them less than you are with Brandon Ingram and the new contract he's about to get because Brandon Ingram is gonna want him to get his money, and good on him for that. But with that, I think you need to see what your options are with Jones and Murphy, just because Ingram's gonna need to get paid, and the Pelicans at this point in time, with the roster as it's currently constructed, they're not a championship roster, so you can't pay Zion all this money and Brandon Ingram when you've got two other guys that can do the same thing as Ingram. Especially Murphy in terms of the offensive end. Herb Jones is more the defender, but Herb Jones is a great defender at that. So, you can make an argument that there's more value because Ingram isn't the best defender and Herb Jones and Trey Murphy can hold their own more a little bit on that end. So I think Ingram is definitely going to be out of town and could very well be a trade candidate for the Pelicans in this upcoming season. In terms of where he should go, I'm intrigued by what the Pelicans could get back because they need a center. You can't have Daniel Tice running the five all season and expect that to be a championship contender. The problem with finding Brandon Ingram a real spot, though, is because the position and what he brings to the table is kind of replaceable, and that's why I think Herb Jones and Trey Murphy are better fits for the Pelicans moving forward because they have skill sets that aren't as easily kind of just replaceable, and Herb and Murphy have skill sets that contribute more to winning basketball in terms of what we've seen recently. Because guys like Ingram, the score first wing, that doesn't do a whole lot else. Ingram's a solid playmaker, but that's about the extent of it. Guys like him, Zach LaVine, that archetype, it's not really going to be the top guy in a championship team. It's not really too often the number two. So it becomes hard to build around, but at the same time, the archetype isn't the best for playing a role either. So Ingram isn't going to go somewhere that's already looking for championships, and he's not going to go in there and be a role player. No, that's not who Ingram is. He's a score-first wing. But then at the same time, he's not really a guy that you can truly build around. If you want to say somewhere like Washington, just because they don't have a lot going for them, right? So they can use all the talent they can get. Well, for one, Ingram doesn't fit the timeline of a guy like Alex Sarr, and, he's just not necessarily who you want to build around, and him getting a lot of touches that could take away from Alex Sarr's development. So there's not really a good spot for Brandon Ingram in terms of where he's going to get a lot of opportunity or where he could, fit in a role. So finding a spot for Ingram is the hardest part of all of this. But whatever the Pelicans do in terms of where they turn him to, they need to make sure that they can get a solid center back. Because, once again, Daniel Tice isn't going to cut it, especially in the postseason. You're going to need better options than that. So, just in general, I kind of wanted to talk about the Pelicans and what they're set up for, with Brandon Ingram being on an expiring year and Ingram's kind of archetype not being the best for winning and also not the best for being a role player. So he's kind of hard to find a team where he can slot into. And, you've got all these wings, so you're going to have to do something. And Ingram is probably the odd man out, especially due to his lackluster playoff performances. And, Zion, when he's healthy, he's really, really good. So Ingram's kind of the odd man out because guess what? He's also dealt with injury. And you're willing to bet more on Zion because he has the higher potential. He was the more highly talented prospect. And in his second year, Zion's sophomore season, he averaged 27 points on elite efficiency. Zion is great when healthy, and Herb Jones and Trey Murphy have a lot of potential. So Ingram is without a doubt the odd man out. It's just a matter of finding a spot for him, and I think that's gonna be the most difficult thing. And I think that's really why the Pelicans haven't moved on from him yet, because finding a spot for Ingram is harder than accepting that, hey, Ingram isn't the guy. We need to move on. But that's all for today's episode of State of the Association. It was quite a bit of rambling, but I think this is just an interesting topic for sure, because the Pelicans are in a situation where they can do a lot of things, but a lot of things also aren't going to be that beneficial, whether it's to them or to another team. So I just kind of want to go over the situation between Ingram and the Pelicans. Thank you for tuning in. It has been State of the Association. We're going to have an episode about teams that are on the outside looking in terms of championship contention, because we talked about contenders previously already, and I believe the Pelicans are one of those teams. So this is kind of a preview for that as well. Thank you for tuning in to State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts.